What if I told you some of the best games you've ever missed weren't AAA at all? No massive budgets, no crazy marketing, just pure passion. And somehow they ended up being better than the big titles everyone talks about. These are the games that surprise you, hook you, and then stay in your head long after you're done playing. And honestly, once you try them, it's hard to go back. In this video, we're diving into 15 AA games that prove you don't need a blockbuster budget to create something unforgettable. These are hidden masterpieces that nailed gameplay, storytelling, or atmosphere in ways even AA games sometimes fail to do. If you're tired of overhyped releases and want something fresh, this list might completely change your playlist. Let's start with a game that doesn't just tell a story, it pulls you inside someone's mind. Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. This isn't your typical action game. It's quiet, intense, and honestly a bit unsettling in the best way. You play as Senua, a warrior dealing with psychosis, and the way the game represents that through sound design is on another level. If you're wearing headphones, the voices feel like they're literally surrounding you, whispering, judging, guiding, sometimes even messing with you. Combat is simple, but it feels heavy and personal, like every fight matters. And instead of throwing a huge open world at you, the game keeps things focused, almost claustrophobic, which actually makes the journey hit harder. What really stands out is how raw and emotional it feels. There's no flashy 8AA padding here, just a deeply personal experience that stays with you long after the credits roll. It's proof that you don't need a massive budget to create something powerful, just a clear vision and the courage to do something different. Then there's A Plague Tale, Requiem, a game that feels bigger, darker, and way more emotional than most AAA titles out there. What hits you first is the atmosphere. The world is beautiful, but there's always this heavy sense of dread hanging over everything. You're following Amisha and Hugo again, and their relationship carries the entire experience. It's not just about surviving enemies or sneaking past guards, it's about watching two characters slowly break under the weight of everything they've been through. The stealth is simple, but it works because the tension is real. And those massive rat swarms, they're not just a gimmick. They make every moment feel unpredictable and dangerous. What really stands out is how personal the story feels. It doesn't try to be overly flashy or packed with filler. Instead, it focuses on emotion, pacing, and immersion, something a lot of big-budget games forget. By the end, it leaves you with that heavy, quiet feeling, the kind that only truly great games can deliver. Next up is GreedFall, a game that feels like a classic RPG from an era when choices actually mattered. It doesn't have the massive polish of 8AA giants, but what it does have is depth. You're thrown into this colonial fantasy world full of politics, factions, and moral gray areas, and the game really lets you decide how you want to navigate it. You can talk your way out of situations, manipulate outcomes, or go in aggressively, and the world actually reacts to you. The companions are another highlight. They're not just there for combat, they have their own beliefs, conflicts, and opinions about your decisions, which makes everything feel more personal. Combat can be a bit clunky at times, sure, but it's the freedom and role-playing that carry the experience. It reminds you of those old-school RPGs where you weren't just following a story, you were shaping it. And that's something a lot of modern 8AA games don't fully capture anymore. Now here's one that seriously levels up the whole Souls-like formula, The Surge 2. At first glance, it might look like just another tough, punishing game, but once you get into it, you realize it's doing something really different. The combat isn't just about dodging and timing, it's about targeting specific body parts. You're literally deciding which limb to cut off so you can loot that exact piece of gear, and that adds a whole layer of strategy you don't see in most AAA titles. Every fight feels intentional, and when you finally take down a strong enemy, it's actually satisfying, not just routine. The world design is tighter and more readable compared to the first game, which makes exploration feel rewarding instead of frustrating. Yeah, it doesn't have the massive scale or cinematic presentation of big-budget games, but what it nails is gameplay depth. It respects your skill, challenges you constantly, and rewards you for learning its systems. And honestly, that's something a lot of that AAA games struggle to get right. Then you've got Remnant, From the Ashes, a game that quietly became one of the most addictive co-op experiences out there. On paper, it sounds simple, a Souls-like shooter with guns instead of swords. But once you start playing, it just clicks. The gunplay feels tight, the difficulty keeps you on edge, and every boss fight actually tests your awareness, not just your reflexes. What really makes it stand out is the procedural world design. Your playthrough isn't exactly the same as someone else's, which means there's always this sense of discovery. You might run into completely different bosses or events, and that keeps things fresh way longer than you'd expect. Playing solo is great, but with friends, it becomes something else entirely. Chaotic, intense, and genuinely fun. It doesn't rely on flashy AAA presentation. Instead, it focuses on gameplay, replayability, and that constant feeling of just one more run. And somehow, that's exactly what makes it so hard to put down. And then there's Remnant 2, which somehow takes everything the first game did right and pushes it even further. This doesn't feel like a simple sequel, it feels like a full evolution. The worlds are more detailed, more unpredictable, and way more alive. You're constantly running into new events, hidden paths, and secrets that make exploration feel exciting again. One of the best upgrades is the class system. Each archetype actually changes how you play, whether you're going full damage, support, or something in between, and mixing them opens up even more possibilities. The boss fights are bigger, smarter, and way more memorable, forcing you to adapt instead of just repeating the same strategy. And just like before, co-op is where it truly shines, but even solo, it holds up incredibly well. What's impressive is how confident it feels. It doesn't try to copy AAA trends, it just builds on its own identity and delivers a deeper, more rewarding experience. This is one of those rare cases where the sequel doesn't just improve things, it proves the series belongs right up there with the best. Next up is Vampyr, and this one is all about choices. But not in the way you'd expect. You play as a doctor turned vampire in a plague-ridden London, and right from the start, the game puts you in this constant moral struggle. Every NPC has a name, a story, a routine, and the twist is, you can feed on them to become stronger. But doing that actually affects the world. Districts can fall into chaos if you're not careful, and suddenly your power comes at a real cost. Combat is decent, not perfect, but it's the atmosphere and decision-making that carry the experience. There's this slow, heavy tone throughout the game that really pulls you in, especially when you're trying to decide whether to stay human or give in to the hunger. It doesn't rely on flashy action or huge set pieces like AAA games. Instead, it focuses on consequences, storytelling, and that constant tension between power and morality. And honestly, that's what makes it so memorable.
This is despicable.
Then you've got The Outer Worlds, a game that proves you don't need a massive open world to create a truly great RPG. Instead of going huge, it keeps things focused and meaningful. Every planet, every quest, every conversation actually feels like it matters. What really stands out is the writing. It's sharp, funny, and sometimes surprisingly dark, especially when it comes to the whole corporate-controlled universe. You're constantly making choices that shape how people see you, and there's a lot of freedom in how you approach situations. You can talk your way through problems, play it smart, or just go full chaos if you want. The companions are also a big win. They're not just followers, they react to your decisions and add personality to the journey. Sure, it doesn't have the scale or visual spectacle of AAA giants, but it doesn't need to. It delivers a tight, replayable experience that respects your time and gives you real role-playing freedom, something a lot of bigger games struggle to balance.
Stay right there!
Here's Kingdom Come: Deliverance, a game that takes realism to a whole new level. This isn't your cinematic, hand-holding AAA medieval fantasy. You're dropped into 1403 Bohemia, and everything feels grounded. Combat is tricky, weighty, and honestly, it can be brutal if you're not paying attention. You can't just hack and slash your way through enemies. Positioning, stamina, and timing actually matter. The story is rich, full of politics, betrayals, and genuine human moments that make you feel like you're part of a living, breathing world. Even simple things like eating or resting matter to your character's well-being. Sure, it's not perfect. The bugs at launch were notorious, but the level of immersion is insane. You actually feel like you're living in the medieval period rather than playing a sanitized fantasy. For anyone craving a deep, thoughtful RPG experience that's about more than flashy graphics, this is a hidden gem. Then there's Sifu, a game that completely redefines the martial arts experience in gaming. On the surface, it looks like a stylish beat-em-up, but the death mechanic is pure genius. Every time you die, you age, and your character gets older, which makes every fight feel weighty and tense. The combat itself is incredibly fluid. It's all about timing, positioning, and chaining attacks together in ways that feel satisfying but demanding. Levels are compact but designed to challenge your strategy, and mastering them gives this addictive sense of mastery. What makes it stand out is the mix of high-stakes combat with a personal story about revenge. It's intimate, intense, and memorable. Unlike AAA brawlers that often rely on flashy combos, Sifu makes every punch, dodge, and counter feel meaningful. It's pure, brutal fun, and once you get into the rhythm, it's impossible to put down. Next up is Kena, Bridge of Spirits, a game that looks like a Pixar movie but plays with surprising depth. From the very first steps, you're drawn into this beautifully crafted world, full of vibrant forests, crumbling villages, and magical spirits called Rot that follow your every move. Combat is smooth and satisfying, mixing ranged and melee attacks, but what really hooks you is the emotional storytelling. You're helping lost souls find peace, and the way the game combines puzzles, exploration, and heartfelt moments makes it feel almost like an interactive storybook. It's not a massive AAA release, but it nails polish, charm, and presentation in ways that many bigger games miss. Playing it gives this warm, nostalgic feeling, like discovering a hidden gem you didn't expect to love as much as you do. It's proof that a smaller team with vision can create something truly magical. Then there's Atomic Heart, a game that's equal parts bizarre, thrilling, and surprisingly polished for a AA studio. Imagine a Soviet-era sci-fi nightmare where robots have gone rogue and every corner of the world feels unpredictable. The gameplay mixes shooting, melee, and some wild psychic powers, which keeps combat chaotic but satisfying. What really makes it stand out is the atmosphere. It's surreal, unsettling, and sometimes even beautiful in its twisted way. Levels are dense, full of secrets, and every encounter makes you pause and think, what's going to happen next? Sure, it doesn't have the budget polish of a Call of Duty or Halo, but it more than makes up for it with creativity and sheer ambition. Playing Atomic Heart feels like stepping into a world you won't forget anytime soon, which is exactly why it earns its spot among these hidden AA masterpieces. Next up is Evil West, a game that feels like pure adrenaline from start to finish. You play as a gunslinger hunting down vampires and other supernatural horrors, and the combat is insanely satisfying. It mixes fast-paced shooting with close-quarter melee, giving every fight this cinematic, almost over-the-top energy without feeling cheap. What really makes it shine is how fun it is to string together combos, dodge, and weave through enemies. It's got that satisfying just one more fight pull that AAA games often try to manufacture but rarely nail. The story is straightforward, sure, but it lets the gameplay take center stage, and honestly, that's exactly what you want in a game like this. Evil West proves that you don't need a massive studio or budget to deliver pure action-packed joy that keeps you coming back for more. Then there's Steelrising, a game that takes the Souls-like formula and throws it into an alternate history Paris during the French Revolution. You play as Aegis, a mechanical automaton, and the combat is precise, weighty, and surprisingly satisfying. Every encounter feels deliberate, forcing you to read enemy patterns and strike at the perfect moment. What really sets it apart is the world design. The streets of Paris are beautifully recreated with a mix of historical and steampunk flair, giving every exploration moment this sense of wonder and danger. Upgrades and weapons feel meaningful, and the boss fights are memorable without being unfairly punishing. It's not a AAA spectacle with endless polish, but it nails tension, challenge, and style in a way that sticks with you. Playing Steelrising feels like uncovering a hidden gem that dared to do something different, and it totally succeeds. Finally, we have a plague tale, Innocence, the emotional foundation that made its sequel so powerful. Even though it's smaller in scope, this game packs a punch with its storytelling and atmosphere. You're following Amicia and her younger brother Hugo through a plague-ridden France, and the sense of vulnerability is constant. Every stealth sequence, every encounter with rats, keeps you on edge, and the game uses tension brilliantly rather than relying on flashy combat or explosions. What makes it unforgettable is how much it invests in the characters. You genuinely care about their bond and their struggle. It's a slow burn, but in the best way. By the end, you're left with a mix of sadness, awe, and admiration for a game that dared to tell a personal human story in a world that could have easily been just another dark fantasy. It proves that careful storytelling and atmosphere can rival even the biggest AAA productions.
Speak up! Don't make me hurt you again. Be careful, goddammit!
The ground is shaking! Amicia, the ground is shaking!
Don't stop! They're right behind us!
And there you have it, 15 AA games that prove you don't need a massive budget or flashy marketing to create something unforgettable. From intense, emotional journeys like Hellblade and A Plague Tale to action-packed thrill rides like Sifu and Evil West, each of these games shows that passion, creativity, and smart design can often outshine even the biggest AAA releases. I'd love to hear from you. Which of these games have you played, and which ones are now on your must-try list? Or maybe there's another hidden gem you think deserves a spot on this list. Drop your thoughts in the comments because I know the community has some amazing suggestions. If you enjoyed this deep dive into AA masterpieces, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next list of games that might just blow your mind. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Keep gaming, and keep discovering the hidden gems.